Teléfono, porque eso. Pues ya tengo calor. Sí, se lo estoy esperando que. ¿Ahí? Okay. Carboxylic acid. The general formula for carboxylic acid must contain this group. That group is also considered to be R, which means any carbon chain, the carbonyl group at the beginning of the molecule. This is carbon 1, just as aldehydes, and an OH. Aldehydes, which was the last group we saw, contains a carbonyl group, the R, the carbonyl group, and an H. ¿Qué significa qué? Al EO. Any carbon chain can be 1 carbon, 2 carbons, 3 carbons. This can also be represented. So, always, this will be carbon 1. That's the place we start. Carboxylics are similar. Again, the carbon chain, the carbonyl group, but instead of a hydrogen, it will have an OH, which is the same as, still this is carbon 1. So the name includes that carbon as carbon 1. So aldehydes, or, so, okay, que chingas. Carboxylics, uy, ya casi enloqueció. Bueno, yo no sé qué le pasó. Relajo, no es tu cuarto este. Ya se me importa. So, carboxylics have a carbonyl group at the beginning of the molecule and an OH, or COOH. R means aliphatic chain, any carbon chain. It can also be a cyclic change. Heterocycle, you can have more than one OH, one ring. It also can be an aromatic molecule, and it can also contain just the hydrogen. As you see in the example, H, COOH, how many carbons? Mr. Ian, how many carbons? Mr. Ian, ¿cuánto más Ian?
One carbon.
Okay, 1 carbon. So the name of 1 carbon compound is methane. Since we have the carbonyl group, means it's a carboxylic acid, not an alkane. So we take away the A and E and add oic acid. I know. Mira linda, todavía sigo. Me está. Ahorita aquí voy a subrayar, me fijé. Oic acid. Methanoic acid. As we saw previously for aldehydes, carboxylic acids, esters, and ethers use the common names for one carbon form, for two carbons, acet, for three carbons, exacto, or mic. Formaldehyde no, si este no es un aldehyde, es un carboxylic acid. Or mic acid. No, que no dije. Yep, eso ya lo tiene. So the common name for this compound following the common nomenclature will be one carbon form. So it will be common name for mic acid. Questions? Valer. Y el otro caprión. Form, acet, propión, butir, valer, caprión. Two carbons like the one we have here. Ethanoic acid. Perdón, no. If they ask you for UPAC name, it's UPAC name. If they ask you for common name, it's common name. So this is ethane, oic acid. Este es el UPAC. And if they ask for the common, a two-carbon compound will be acet. So it is acetic acid. Where have you seen acetic acid? No había que le echabas acetona a la ensalada. Acetic acid is what we commonly use as vinegar. Only that vinegar can only contain 3.5%. Déjate cosas. The acetic acid, Oscar, ¿ves que te digo? Ahí te voy a grapar mejor. Acetic acid. Questions? In the last exam 3, propionic acid, el common, el UPAC name, propanoic. The other one has, as you see, this one is repeated. is 1. And this one repeated twice. Butyric the common, ethanoic the UPAC. If you see this one, four carbons, isobutyric, ethanoic, este tiene 16. The name doesn't matter. And we will not see 16 carbon compound. Questions? Ian, no question? Ay, Dios. ¿Ah? ¿Estaban aquí? ¿Quién? ¿Acá? Uy. Uy, uy. Bueno. La vida del poder, gracias. Done, Ian? Boy, very good. Well, this is a summary of what we saw before. Write it down if you wish. Remember, these compounds, including the common names that form acet, propion, and all of those, also include the alpha, beta, gamma substitutes. Alpha for the first carbon, beta for the second, and gamma for the third. If we have, for example, Oscar, me vas a dar perecitis como la tuya. First, we start by numbering our carbons. Always 1. We have the carbonyl group, and we have the OH. Carbonyl group. What's different apart from the carbonyl group? That it has an OH, identifying our compound as a carboxylic acid. Then we go to the second carbon. Which will be 2, 3, and 4. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4. The name of this compound is butanoic acid. The UPAC name. Butanoic acid. Does it have substitutes? How many substitutes? Two. The name of the substitutes? So it is dimethyl. And the number of the substitutes is 2 and 3. This is the UPAC name. Common name for a 4-carbon carboxylic acid must use what prefix? Butyl for carbons. So it is butyric acid. Substitutes don't change names, so they are dimethyl. Now, another difference is that the substitutes do not have numbers in the common names. They have Greek letters. Alpha, beta, gamma. In what position are our substitutes located? Alpha and beta. Alpha and beta. Notice that the letters start in the next carbon, not in here. This is carbon 1. This is what identifies our compound as, in the first case with an H, aldehyde. In our case with an OH is a carboxylic. So it is alpha beta dimethyl butyric acid. Questions? Yes. La letra griega. Those are the rules. ¿Se acuerda que yo no las hice? ¿Será que no? ¿Será que no? Ojo, indio, pero lencas no hay letras. Oh.
Mrs. Kreke, do you think you can make the diagram of the alpha and beta positions, because I can't see the letters clearly?
You only need to know alpha, beta, gamma.
Alpha, beta, and what?
The blue letters, gamma. And all of those letters, you have seen them since 9th grade, because those are letters to votes. Después Keira. Ahí está también. Ahí no está. Ajá. No es escrito. Como usted ya dijo, you're not Greek. Es lenta, no usa letras griegas. Invito para las chucas. Ah. Usted hable por su condición. No me mete sus problemas. Oscar, cállate. Cállate. Done, Ian? Mario? Okay. Liquid carboxylic acid, those of low molecular weight, are referred to the ones with the least number of carbons. Hola, doña Elena, no me había fijado que estaba ahí. ¿Cómo estás? Have sharp and pleasant odors. Butyric acid occurs in rancid butter, in aged cheese. Liquid, they are liquid at room temperature. The high molecular weight acids, as myristic, palmitic, stearic, are known as fatty acids. And the wax-like solids, acetylation of salicylic acid produces aspirin, possesses analgesic, anti-inflammatory, and antipyretic properties. There's a reaction. You don't have to know the reaction. This is done just for you to know the existence and how an aspirin, which the real name is acetyl salicylic acid, is formed. No, Oscar, this is info. ¿Ya lo copiaste? You need to know info. Fíjate. Se nota. La gente es ridícula, ¿va? Si le hizo así era una seña, si le hizo así era una seña, si le gusta estar así es otra seña. Bueno, si te pones a ver. ¿Dan? Ok, típico.
No.
¿Qué niño es esto? Y fue una niña, fue la gana. ¿Dónde está? ¿Oh? ¿Qué? Ah, sí. Más te vale o te tienes que subir. Cállate. Ana, done?
Sí.
Okay. Rest? Now, these are the examples we already have seen, but you don't have the source. Formic acid, all of us have felt formic acid. That's the acid when an ant bites you, you feel a lot of like itching, hot pain. That's because they are injecting formic acid into your system. It's a very low amount unless you fall into a big hole full of ants. And in Latin, the word is formica. That's why it's the derived name is formic acid. The acetic acid is found in vinegar. El L that it has before is acetum. The word comes from acetum. Propionic acid is the milk from the Greek protus prion. Butyric acid is in butter from the Latin butyrum. The valeric acid, the name gives you a hint, is from Valerian root. And the last one we will see is the caproic acid from the goats, the Latin caper. And below you have examples.
Debieron ser dos slides diferentes. Se mira muy chiquito como para ser bien entendido.
This, as you see, has two OHs. So again, like the alkenes, is D for 2. Remembering that from alkenes, we wrote D in. Here is oic acid to represent the carboxylic, so it is the oic acid. Huh? ¿Qué? No hay otra forma. Aquí están los dos carboxylics, ¿ves? Again, the two carboxylics. 1, 2, 3. 3 carbons, propane, dioic. 1, 2, 3, 4. 4 carbons, butane, dioic. That's when we have two carboxylic acids in the same molecule. This one, we already saw it when we saw aromatics. Here we saw it like COOH. And that was called benzoic acid, remember? Mm-hmm. Yeah, Carita. Olvidada. Nada, nada. Tono de gris. ¿Y vos qué crees que yo soy dueña de las? ¿No? Done? Dana.
Ya casi.
Casi, ok. Daniela, your camera has to be on. Dana.
Sí.
Okay. The next kind of group of carbons we will, organic compounds we will see are the ones known as ketones. Ahí las que dice Don Oscar. ¿Ah? ¿Qué dijiste? They are the ones that we know as cetonas. Este muchachito, tontito. Ay, sí. Pero estos son aldehydes. Now, naming ketones. First, we will see the examples and then we will see the ketone. Ketones are compounds, organic compounds, that contain a carbonyl group in the middle of the molecule. So, the least number of carbons they will present is not 1, it's just 3. The number for the carboxylic molecule will be the least one. And it can also be represented as you can see, it is alone and it will have no substitutes. The carbonyl group will be intact, nothing will be used as a substitute. Let's say something that comes here, if that's not possible. Ketones do not have substitutes in their carbonyl group. Carbonyl group has to be in the middle of the molecule, and they will have the smallest possible number. How do we name a ketone? First of all, in the one example that we have here, it has 1, 2, 3 carbons. The alkane name is propane. You drop the E and it will be propanone. From ketone. Propanone. That's the ending. And it also will have a number to indicate where the carbonyl group is. In this case, in carbon 2. Commercial name, common name of this compound is ethyl. This is the commercial common name. Now, ketones are named commonly by listing the substitutes on the sides of the carbonyl group. In alphabetical order, in this case, both are the same. So, the common name that we will read, this is called what? On carbon? Methane, so it is methyl. The other, on the other side of the carbonyl group is methyl, so the name is dimethyl ketone.
Cómo me estorba el que ponga todo así bien pegado. Después cuesta repasar por eso. Pone las notas como ella las pone para no equivocarse.
This is a new compound for us.
Un relajo.
The benzene group and 2 carbons. So it's called acetophenone. Acetophenone. The name of this substitute is, a ver, Raulito. Ay, solo se ríe el pícaro. Ajá. ¿Cómo se llama? The one circle. Raúl. ¿Cómo se llama? What's the name?
What's
the name of the substitute that I circled?
Methyl.
Methyl. And this one? Benzene as a substitute.
Pero ahorita sí me quedé como pensando, pero... Sí, me quedé como... No lo
Okay, the substitute benzene as a substitute is known as phenyl. Yo no dije que no. And the word ketone because we use the carbonyl group in the middle of the molecule. Ahora sí, Raulito. Oscar, qué chingadas. Ay, Dios mío. Pobre iluso. 105. This is another compound, a new one. It's called benzophenone. A ver, Raulito, entonces ahora dígame cómo se llama. Sí, ahí me va a decir. You remember when Miss Arañal said, Raulito, that the answer is Raúl? Because I asked cómo se llama. Raúl. Ajá. Este substitute se llama.
Ketone.
No, ketone es con el double bond, acá, con el carbonyl. ¿Este se llama? Raulito.
No me acuerdo mucho.
Cariño.
Semana.
Pasó una semana y ya no sabes nada.
Sí, la verdad que sí.
Qué barbaridad. Acá lo acabamos de ver, that's why I was asking it. Phenyl. And the one on the other side, phenyl. So the name is diphenyl ketone. Ay, Raulito.
Ay, mis alergias.
Questions? Done with this slide? Bien.
Mrs. Why did we call it benzophenone at first?
It's a special name. As well as this one. This is a special name, and this is a special name. Doesn't follow any particular rules. Just as we saw, benzene with a CH3 was called toluene. There's no rule for that to be called toluene.
It is, but in this case, we can use both names.
Nope. You have to name benzophenone as common, as UPAC, and the common diphenyl ketone. Y vos estás gravecita por vaga.
Mentira.
¿Ya te hicieron la prueba?
Pues,
Pero no te han hecho una inicial.
no.
Entonces, ¿por qué decís que tenés? ¿Tenés síntomas?
No, o sea, yo no dije que tenía, yo solo... bueno, es que yo no hice la excusa, la hizo mi papá.
No, yo no lo he leído, no es por eso. Es que otro que me contó. Un
Bueno,
individuo
sí.
por ahí.
Sí, no, si viene de Oscar no le crea nada.
No, fíjate que no fue otro individuo. Bueno, pero está bueno que te aísles porque estuviste en contacto. Okay, this is the same rules we already discussed. Now, as you can see, there are two ketones in the same group. As you see, the carbonyl groups are here. If we consider this group, the compound is called what? It's an aldehyde, it's a ketone, or carboxylic acid. If we have this in carbon 1, the carbonyl group, and it has a hydrogen. It's an aldehyde, it's a ketone, or carboxylic acid, which we have seen right now. Or an alcohol. It's an aldehyde. It has a carbonyl group with the H. So we know it's an aldehyde. But there's a problem. It has another carbonyl group in the middle of the molecule. This can also make the molecule a ketone. But the aldehyde will always be the base name. And the carbonyl group that identifies the ketone will be a substitute. The substitute ketone as a substitute is called oxo. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Pentanal. No number before because aldehydes are in carbon 1. 1, 2, 3, 4. We have the carbonyl group that identifies as a ketone. So it will be 4 oxo. Huh? Al. ¿Está? If we see the second one, the aldehyde always at the beginning, so we know it will then be considered an aldehyde. We have two carbonyl groups that will make it a ketone. So we count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. The name is still pentanal. No number because aldehydes are in carbon 1 and the oxo groups are in carbon 3 and carbon 4. So it will be 3, 4, D-oxo for the carbonyl groups. Let's check the other one. Again, carbonyl group. Carbon 1, Carbon 2, we have another substitute. Carbon 3, carbon 4. 1, 4 carbons, it will be butanal, right? I have an oxo group, carbon 3. And then I place the normal substitutes. What substitute do we have here? Este here has a little point. ¿Sería cómo? Methyl. Oscar.
So the ending AL is only when this happens?
Is when we have an aldehyde and a carboxylic acid with a carbonyl group in between the molecules. You can have 1, 2, or more than 2, right?
Okay, thank you.
Welcome. We're done, Ian. Uy, qué very good, Dana. Ya casi nada.
No, sí, hoy sí.
Vaya, qué milagrito. As you see here, the aldehydes is when they have 2 aldehydes. See? 1 in each corner. And what we use is, at the ending, the al. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Usually they don't place numbers because they are to be in the corners. So they have to be in the first and in the last carbon. That's why they usually do not place number. Again, ketones do have numbers because they are not in the corners. And it will be the one. Ending Oyuka. Algo. Yes. Y de 5 cosas. No. A traer agua. Y este pobre iluso que 7 minutos. Es que me lele la garganta con toda la papada. ¿De las 7:30? No se está metiche. No lo puedes tocar. Y cuando le pega la gana funciona. ¿Eh? ¿Done? Oh, no.
No.
¿El qué? ¿La qué? Ah, yo. Y voy a decir que vos me estás molestando. Estás otro delito federal. Estás bullying, estás hostigando. ¿Quién está discriminando a quién? ¡Qué lengua de perro! Yo no te dije perro. ¿Vos qué te crees perro? Espérate. Espérate. ¿Sabías? ¿Ana?
Listo.
Vaya, milagrito. Vamos con éteres. Si me encuentro las y yo me invento. ¿Qué? Uy, este no es esters. No, éteres. Diferente al alfa. Eso lo usas. Espérate.
Pucha, incluso a mí se hacía un relajo.
No.
No, eso siempre me ha sacado de aquí. El desorden. Ay, no.
No, porque quería hacerlo en cállate, ufa. Deberían de ser chicharrón, ¿no? Ajá. Subtitle ethers. When we have an alcohol, we have a carbon chain and an OH attached to the chain. That's what makes it an alcohol. Ethers are like derivatives from the alcohols. You have a carbon chain, the O, and no OH. So it means that instead of a carbonyl group, you will have a simple O in the middle of the molecule. These alkyl groups can be equal or the same, or they can be different. When I mean equal or the same is if I have one of the groups, usually the longest one, will contain the O. Methane, it's the one carbon compound we have here, but it has the oxygen. So the name will be methoxy. The other part, name as a single out substitute. Alkyl group for one carbon is methyl. for the common name, we put like a line of border here. This is called methyl. This is called methyl. So the name is dimethyl ether. It's the same as for ketones. You name from the right of the carbonyl group, from the left of the carbonyl group, in alphabetical order, and the word ketone. In this case, it's the same, the right, the left, or the alphabetical order, and the word ether to indicate it's only an oxygen in the middle of the molecule. Now, if the example, ¿se lo mando a tu papá? Y Ana para que revuelva. We have the oxygen alone in the middle of the molecule. It does not have any carbon, so it's not a carbonyl group. So, since they are the same, ethoxy, ethyl, ethoxy. Common name, ethyl, ethyl, diethyl, ether. These compounds were used at the beginning as anesthetics. Problem is that the side effects they have were terrible. Still, any anesthetic that is used on us gives us a side effect. Imagine these ones that were the first. They were terrible. So they considered to be derivatives of water, but usually since we have the carbon, it's from alcohol. An oxygen atom is connected to two alkyls or aryl groups, aryl meaning aromatics. This is the general formula. And ether molecules cannot form hydrogen bonds amongst each other, resulting in a relatively low boiling point compared to that of the analogous alcohols. And they are slightly polar. They dissolve in water. That's what slightly polar means. But still you can see the mixing of the ether and the water particles. Kind of like a slight oily substance floating on the water. Nadie te está preguntando.
Mrs.
Yeah.
¿Por qué es ethoxy?
¿Por qué? G.
¿Sí?
One carbon, two carbons, ethane. With oxygen, ethoxy.
Ah, ok. Y el otro solo sería el ethyl, ¿verdad?
Como substitute.
Ah, ok, ok.
In the example I recently wrote, we have a long chain of carbons, and this OCH3 acts as a substitute. Methane with oxygen is methoxy, acting as a substitute. The long chain is butane, and in carbon 2 we have the methoxy. Uno, dos, tres. La H, 4. OCH3. Ah, ahí está el cuarto. sabe. Me está preguntando por el carbon. Este es el carbon. Yes. Yo tampoco. ¿Verdad? Y el resto de la clase te oye. O está muted. Claro que sí, ella tiene su cupo ahí. Ah, vos estás muted, no te oyen tus compañeros. Ah, con razón, no saben lo que yo sufro. Amy, you know, right, Amy?
Algo positivo me dices.
¿Ves? Y la pobre Amy te aguanta todo el día y solo por horas. Bendito Dios en ese aspecto. ¿Ah? Oh, bueno. Are we done? These are examples. Ay, sí.
No los puedo leer, por supuesto, porque es excelente con lo que presenta, ¿verdad? Información que tengo que copiar, que se vuelve irrelevante. Ejemplos que no me sirven porque
This
no
is
sé
cyclohexane and this is
y
ethane.
explicaciones muy pegadas
Long
que hacen
chain.
repasar difícil después. No, qué terrible.
6 carbons, so is cyclohexane. Uy, bueno. Y este sería, ¿qué? ¿Cómo se llama, Oscar? ¿Que circulé? Ethoxy. Ajá. Raulito, what's the name of this compound? Se me escondió.
Benzene.
Ajá, este es benzene. Ok, macanudo. ¿Y el otro por la O?
Era la poli.
Este era peneo. ¿Y con O sería? No, decía este con O. Compounds used in dyes, perfumes, oils, waxes, and other industrial uses. Questions? The 5 groups are the ones for Friday. So start doing we have a worksheet and we also have a classwork. There, one of the dittos is just rules. And below each of the rules, the set of rules, you have examples. And you have your normal worksheet. So to practice, you have more than 1,000 problems, right? Ahí dice, ese study worksheet es porque va a trabajar ahorita. Y el worksheet tiene fecha. El otro no, ese lo voy subiendo cada vez que yo le pida problemas. Fíjate, Oscar.